This is one of the best run battles you'll ever see. The T100 World Tour made its third stop in San Francisco, racing over one of the most dynamic courses we've ever seen the PTO put on. A cold, choppy swim with strong currents, a hilly, tough bike course, and a fast gravel run to test the best triathletes in the world. The best triathletes in the world line up on the side of the boat for the iconic start here in San Francisco. They dive into the cold water, and straight away we start to see packs forming, with Ben Canute nearest to us and Aaron Royal leading a big group on the far side. It looked like Royal was going to lead out after establishing a small gap partway through the swim, but Ben Canute used his experience of racing here before to take a shorter line to shore and led out with Rico Bogan. With the clock not even at 14 minutes, it looked like there was a combination of a shorter swim and strong currents. As we see more and more athletes in shot running to T1, you start to realise what a big current there was towards shore that kept the groups close together and aided the weaker swimmers. I was expecting bigger gaps to form because of the swim. We saw Mark Dubrick put 1 minute into other front pack swimmers here last year, but we have pretty much the whole field coming out of the water within a minute of each other. As we see all the athletes coming into T1, this completely changes the dynamic of the race. With the bike and run pedigree of Sam Long, this would have to play into his hands, as well as Ditlev, who normally surges to bridge up to the leaders. However, Sam Long hindered himself immediately with a messy T1 where he didn't clip his helmet and picked up a 30-second penalty. Ben Canute is first out of T1, but it doesn't take long for Marten van Riel to come past and take the lead. All the pre-race talk was around the Belgian, and this was the big test of whether we'd see short course athletes come across and really challenge the long course guys. Van Riel applied the pressure early and started to establish a gap after the first lap of the bike with Carl Smith, Rico Bogan and Ben Canute. Canute eventually dropped off the pace and fell back to the chasers. There was lots of congestion on the climbs, and I know there will be lots of debate around this. There needs to be some flexibility with drafting penalties, especially on hilly courses where athletes will naturally ride into the draft zone on a climb. When we see athletes out of the aero bars climbing, I don't have a problem with them being within the 20 metres. However, as soon as it flattens out and they start descending, that's when it really needs to be enforced, and it definitely seemed pretty loose at points all across the course. Neither Long nor Ditlev were really able to make much headway on the bike. Clearly the course didn't suit them, and I think they struggled with the congested nature of the climbs and the descents. The course looked extremely narrow at points, with so many athletes all together. I think it made it difficult for them to move through or break away. So this big chase pack stayed together and then gradually reeled in the breakaway, with Mignon bridging across and Ditlev making a move, and finally Sam Long latched onto the back, and this big group rolled towards T2 altogether. Long made a big move to improve his position coming into T2, and he was first off the bike but was met with an official telling him about his penalty. He opted not to take it straight away and was first onto the run. Carl Smith came flying past him and quickly put 50 metres into everyone. After losing positions coming into T2 and a slower transition, Marten van Riel gradually reeled in Smith and latched onto the back of him. And after looking like he was suffering early on, Rico Bogan bridged up to make a lead pack of 3. This group pulled away from Ditlev, Margirier and Canute, with Sam Long falling further back after taking his penalty after the first lap. There was no separating Smith, Van Riel and Bogan, and it looked like Bogan tried to surge a couple times, but Smith covered it easily, while Van Riel seemed pretty content sitting on their shoulders. This group stayed together all the way through the run, and it was coming down to the final kilometre where they started to attack each other. Bogan went first and Smith covered it easily again, and then it was Carl Smith making his own attack. He attacks and gets past Bogan, and we see Van Riel come past the German as well, but it looks like Smith starts to get a bit of separation from Van Riel. As they run past transition, it looks like Smith has got a couple metres over Van Riel, but then Van Riel starts to close it as they get closer and closer and closer to the finish. Van Riel comes alongside Smith, and they both start to struggle running along the grass. Van Riel pushing, they nearly trip, and Van Riel and Smith are taking it all the way to the line, and Van Riel edges and gets the better of Smith to take a huge win in his first T100 race. Carl Smith went to the well to push into the line and is rewarded. This was one of the greatest run battles we've seen in recent history, and a huge sprint finish between 3 athletes battling it out on the world stage. This is one of the greatest races I've ever seen, and Marten van Riel has announced himself to long course triathlon and backed up the hype that was building in the lead up to this race. He could now be the favourite for the whole series, depending on how he goes after the Olympics. The men's T100 World Tour is wide open. We've had 3 different winners across the 3 races, and I can't wait to see what happens in London.